Yeah, thanks again to Mindy for hitting that record button second time. Otherwise, might not have had a podcast today. No, thanks again to Jamie for letting us use that Mick McCarthy house music mix. We are the Premium FPL podcast at premium_FPL on Twitter. For those who are not already following us, please follow us for injury updates, talking points, and Mindy's remarkable rise from the ashes of 4 million 4 million overall rank. So I'm Callum, one half of the podcast, as I'm always joined by Mindy. How's it going?
Yeah, FPL wise, it's been good. I think I was just looking at my Gameweek history before. 10 green arrows in a row. So if I ever manage to,
Show off.
if I ever manage to have a good start in FPL, which I just never do, I just always seem to get good once we hit sort of around this time, Christmas and stuff. Yeah, I think I've got maybe a psychological problem with the start. We can next pre-season you can find out what's going wrong in my head, like putting too much pressure on myself at the start, something like that. But yeah,
right. Well, it's a good job you're having these this uprising form, because you kind of need to win the mini leagues now, don't you? After your errand New Year period.
Yeah, lost a bit of money over the year. Not that I was out. I was following COVID protocol, following all the restrictions, but still managed to lose a
Which
wallet.
restrictions were you following out of interest?
All of them.
Right.
All of them. But yeah, Christmas money from the parents and family and stuff just all gone in one night. So after losing my wallet on that drunken night, I then decided, rather than stay in and just be pissed off about it, to get pissed again, which just meant New Year's Day, like I was just in absolute pieces, and I was tempted just to build. I had 2 free transfers to use, and I was just like lying in bed thinking, I really can't be arsed with this. But I just I don't know, burning a transfer just pisses me off so much as well. I just managed to stare at my laptop for half an hour and come up with something. But yeah, we'll talk about that as we get into other stuff. But what about you?
I love that you're half dead, and you somehow managed to bring yourself to log into FPL. Well, that's the commitment right there.
I mean,
that's the commitment of a guy who does a podcast.
Yeah, I did it for the podcast listeners. I don't want people thinking, we're just some amateurs who just hit record once every week and hope for the best, What about yourself? Any tales of woe from Christmas and New Year, or
no, unlike you, I had a bit of a quiet one. I actually adhered to the government guidelines. Just spent it with family. I wasn't out throwing my money at everyone who wanted to see it. No, it's quite quiet. And on the FPL front, well, unlike yourself, you've had, what have you had, 10 consecutive rises, you say?
Yeah.
That's impressive. Game week 16, I actually had a drop off. I went from 60,000 to 100,000. That was kind of due to the City games and the Spurs game, Fulham game being called off. So that I actually had 6 players. So that kind of did me over. But I'm back up to 60,000 after last week. So I'm kind of where I was, really. I've been around 60,000 3 out of the last 4. So hopefully the next 2 game weeks, which we've both planned for hours, haven't we? So we're both in great shape for the next 2 game weeks. But we're hopefully going to offer some help to those who have been caught by surprise.
Yeah, and just to qualify what I was saying about 10 greens in a row, obviously I had such a shit start that when you're 4 million, you are gonna. It's hard not to get green arrows from there. So yeah, that's part.
Are the people down there got Alexis Sanchez in the team, or what are you competing with?
Alexis Sanchez, maybe. I mean, even if you have Aubameyang in your team, you're probably gonna struggle, aren't you? You don't even. He's basically been not playing the past 2-3 months.
Jesus.
So
and we bigged him up. I remember the glory days of game week 1 where Aubameyang was newly changed to midfielder. We were full of excitement.
Well, yeah, it kind of points just towards the unpredictability of what's been going on this season, which we talked about in the past. Just say when we're recording, it's the 7th of January, about lunchtime. So I guess the big stuff to look out for this weekend will be like injuries in the FA Cup, how many minutes people get, you can kind of maybe make some learnings on who's going to start midweek in the Premier League games based on who gets 90 and stuff like that. Maybe in the FA Cup, case dependent, of course.
I think we hopefully be quite lucky. It's the third round, isn't it? So most teams will be fully rotating, or if not all players.
Yeah. And then subscribe, follow us on Twitter, all that stuff. YouTube, this will be going out on YouTube as well later. So subscribe on there if you've not subscribed on that yet. Not sure why you'd want to watch our faces rather than just listen and not have to look at our mugs, but there might be some people who
You never know, you might have a few admirers, Mindy.
No comment. Should we get into the what we started with? Can we go briefly with
Yeah, this one's been a bit ad hoc, isn't it?
But should we start with like the 2 game weeks over Christmas where it was just so quick and we didn't get a chance to get a pod out? Like, just talk through like the talking points and how our team did.
Yeah, so 16 and 17, the main talking point from 16 was, as I said in my intro, the City game against Everton, and the Spurs against Fulham was called off. So a lot of teams who didn't have them players were suffered quite heavily, really. And then teams who didn't, kind of the opposite happened, and they kind of made a bit of ground. Obviously, the Leeds 5-0 was a big result there. Just looking through, the Arsenal resurgence kind of started with that 1-0 against Brighton. I know people are going to rush to get them in, Saka in, and maybe a defender or two for the free hit. And then Chelsea 1-1 against Villa. Not much to say about that. And Chelsea assets aren't looking strong right now. And then 17. Do you want to run through 17?
So 17. I got what my score, or just like what happened in the week?
Oh, you can go. I was just going to run through
what, like, the talking points of the week.
What happened? Yeah,
cool. I guess the start was probably Soucek scoring again, or Susek, however you say it. And it wasn't a header this time, which was surprising to a lot of people. So yeah, a lot of people had Soufal and Susek on the bench again this week. I think I'm just never going to bench him. He's just always going to be part of my first 11 because it's just
right. That's bold. Always.
Well, while I've got him, yeah, because if he scores every third game, then what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I think I've benched him for every goal that he scored, which kind of proves the point.
So yeah, and yeah, I think that was part of the big reason why I went 3-5-2, because I could just see that happening if I didn't, where I'd just be benching the wrong person every week. So, and then people who held on to Spurs players were rewarded this week, especially if you captained one of them. And then the other big talking point was Salah, and Liverpool not looking great. Salah blanking, and Liverpool not managing to break through Southampton, which there might be like a wider trend away from home there, possibly. Fernandes did what Fernandes tends to do, ticks over, penalty and 3 bonus points. Anything I might have missed?
City was a big result as well, beating Chelsea. And I had 2 defenders, and obviously the last minute goal kind of killed the clean sheet there. But City looked really good, didn't they? And Kevin De Bruyne looks like he finally might live up to the hype, because I know his point scoring isn't actually that high, is it, comparable to the other premium assets? But it will be interesting to see now whether he actually fulfills that kind of expectation, really.
Yeah, so on De Bruyne, City weren't supposed to have a fixture in the double game at 19 originally, were they? They weren't. It was going to be missing. And then after I took out De Bruyne, and I was so happy, I was like, gloating to you about not having City players for their game that got cancelled. It then turns out that the main reason I took him out went away, because he's now got a double in game week 19. So I need to think about getting him back, which kind of affects everything really. My plans for the any plans I had to free hit and all that. So that was a little bit annoying, but it's just part of the season, isn't it? Things change, roll with the punches. I think I've got a new plan, which we'll talk through later. But yeah, I'd recommend people, if you, like me, you've sort of disengaged a little bit over Christmas and New Year. Any plans you had before, just check that they still work, because fixtures have moved around. The other thing that changed over Christmas and New Year was that United's game with Burnley, that was not originally in Game Week 18, now is. So that could change what you wanted to do this week as well. It kind of does for me, because it means I've still got Bruno now this week, which is good, an extra good player for this blank game week coming. I don't know, how did it affect you, that stuff? I guess it was good for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love that you say you're a man who has disengaged with FPL and he's halved his rank in the past 2 game weeks. So just to go over to just to quickly go over the scores, Matt, as well. You got 51 and 77, which is very impressive, because I think if you get an average of 60 a game week, you're likely to finish in the top 10k over 38 weeks. So you're on track there. And then I got 37, but then bounced back with 77. Just to answer your point there with me striking lucky, at one point with the City Liverpool, when City and Spurs got called off in 16, it looked like I got the bad side of the draw, really. But the way it's fell with City having that double game week now in 19, and the United game being rearranged, I can actually field with just making one transfer, which I already have. I've brought Salah out and brought De Bruyne in, just to catch the price rise there, because I knew I was going to do that. And De Bruyne is likely, I'd probably say he's 99.9% likely to not play against Birmingham, so he'll be wrapped up in cotton wool. So you kind of fancy him there with that Brighton. He'd be a lot of people's captain, so that was kind of an easy decision. And then 19, the game after, I'll have 2 transfers. I make them 2 transfers and I've got 9 players playing. 9 players playing a double, sorry. So it's kind of worked out in a way. I've kind of took that hit in 15 by not getting players, but hopefully I can kind of make ground now on people, because we're going to talk about playing the free hit next game week. But that the people who play a free hit now to get the City players in for that Brighton game, they're almost at a disadvantage 19, because they're left without City players for another exciting game week for City. So it kind of makes me wonder whether it is the right decision for people. If you can get 7 or 8 players but bring in 3 City, you might not need to play that free hit, because you're kind of doing yourself over in a way, by going without City in 19. So I think it's going to be an interesting couple of game weeks. It's probably the biggest couple of game weeks in an FPL point of view that we've had this season, just because of the difference in team strategy.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we don't really have a running order as such for this one, just because going through like what a good free hit team looks like is something we're going to spend quite a bit of time on. And then also just talking about the pros and cons of using the free hit. Should you save it for later? Because what you're saying about the free hit not being as good as it was before is true. But then also you have to weigh up, like, if it gains you 20 points still this week, would it gain you 20 points at some point later in the season, which is kind of
it's all about personal, isn't it? Yeah.
And you have to look at your team, how many players you can get out, and that sort of thing. So for me, it pretty much comes down to what you said. Like, if I was going to free hit, I'd have 3 City players, and then I'd want 3 City players for the double in Game Week 19. So I'd just have to take 2 hits probably to get the City players in Game Week 19. I'm just sort of putting off a problem rather than fixing it. So I might as well not use the free hit, use 2 transfers this week to do something like Salah to De Bruyne and Kilman to Diaz. And then maybe 1 more transfer in Game Week 19 to get Salah back or something. Which is, something, I think that's pretty much what I'm looking at so far. So the main benefit of that is saving the free hit for the other blanks that will come to do with FA Cup rearrangements and stuff later in the season. And I'll still have most of the doublers that I want in double game week 19. But it's different for different people. I think if you've already got two City players in your two or three City players in your team, but you don't have any United players, or you don't have any. Who else is good this week? I don't know.
Spurs, yeah.
Yeah,
Arsenal.
or Spurs or Arsenal, something like that. Yeah, then maybe the free hit is better for you still.
Yeah,
So,
I think City's the key one for me. I think if you don't have City, then I'd be tempted just to transfer the City players in. But if you do have City and lacking elsewhere, then like you say, the free hit might be the best way to play it.
because I think you don't really want less than 6 players playing this week. I'd say you'd want like 6 or 7, and you'd want some of them to be like the big boys as well. Like if part of your 6 or 7 players playing this week are like Brewster and Kilman and stuff like that, then I think you should probably free hit. Don't know what you think about it.
Yeah.
Because
I'm in full agreement.
You see people saying, "Oh well, I can get 7 out this week and stuff, so I can save the free hit." But if half of those 7 are dross, then really you've got 3 or 4. So
yeah, I think the free hit becomes more applicable in your personal situation. I think if they're players that you're not going to play in 19,
yeah,
I think if you're playing your free hit to bring in players that you want to bring in 19 anyway, it kind of loses effect in a sense.
yeah.
I'd say.
So my, just to sort of flesh out what I was saying before with my plan, Salah's up blanking this week, so Salah to De Bruyne makes sense. I could do Son to De Bruyne, but then it doesn't. But I'd also have to lose Kane to fund that, and then I'm losing 2 players that play this week. It doesn't really make sense. So
yeah, I don't think you should be transferring in people who play games.
So yeah, so while it seems silly to take out Salah because I will want him straight back, which there is a bit of a debate around actually, given how Liverpool are playing. I think I've learnt my lesson on Salah from the start of the season. He doesn't go often without doing something for too long. He's been so consistent in his 3 years in the Prem. So I will just then get him straight back for Liverpool's Dublin game at 19, and then I'll take out Son for him. So I'll take out Son and Kane then to get Salah back. I think.
Is that in 19?
Yeah.
The thing is, in 19, Spurs have Sheffield United, and it's almost as if that fixture's almost better than a double.
You think?
Possibly. The way that both teams are playing.
Spurs, like Sheffield, like obviously they keep losing and they look awful, but they don't just like give up loads of chances though, like Leeds do. I think Sheffield are the kind of team that Spurs would actually, because they're not going to come out onto Spurs, are they? They're going to try and sit in, which I think if Spurs get an early goal, it'll be game over and it could be a nightmare. But I think if Spurs don't get an early goal and Sheffield are just sitting in, up until the Leeds game, where Leeds kind of just were giving Spurs chances on the plate, like Luke Ayling was just passing the ball straight to Son and Kane in some parts of that game. I think Spurs weren't looking that hot going up to it. So I think, I'm not sure whether Spurs for the next few are actually, I think up until, because they've got Liverpool after in game week 20, and then maybe game week 21, I'd look to get one of them back against Brighton. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to take that risk with how my team is, that because in game week 19, if Son and Kane both go off, then yeah, with how well run they are, that will affect me that week. I just have to hope that what it means for me with the rest of my double game week team pays off in other areas. And yeah, with the only if other people are thinking about doing that, you have to factor in, depending on what price you bought them in at, it might be more expensive to get them back. I got Son in quite late recently after taking him in and out of my team, so I'm not really too bothered. But I know other people who maybe got Son in at 9, it's a hard decision to get rid of him because he's what is he now?
9.8.
Yeah, so it's a big drop in value you're losing there if you're planning to take him out in double game 19 and buy him back. So if you're one of those people, I'd say, yeah, hold him and hope he does bits against Sheffield.
Does bits. For me, yeah.
I can't believe you're laughing at me saying does bits when you sometimes start the podcast saying join us for top bants.
just found it funny you saying does bits. Yeah, so for me, obviously I touched on it. Bringing in De Bruyne for Salah this week, and then the game week after, I'd have 2 transfers. I'm actually going to take Son out for Salah, because you can't really go out with a double. The other thinking with Salah, last week we recorded, well, our last pod, we were both set on triple captain Salah, and I think that's something that's become doubtful in my mind. Might not even captain him now with De Bruyne.
Yeah.
City's fixtures are
better, aren't they? So
Villa and Palace, but then I'm pretty reluctant to triple captain De Bruyne just because I think Salah's more explosive when he's in form. So I might hold off on that chip for later on. So that's something that has changed over the past 3 weeks, I'd say. But then game week 19, I'm probably going to take, as I said, Son for Salah, and then Calvert-Lewin to Rodrigo just to try and fund that move, because I know Everton don't double, do they, in 19? No, they've just got Villa, and then the fixtures are a bit tricky after that. So
the goals
it seems like it needs to move.
The goals haven't looked that free flowing Everton either. They don't.
No, and Leeds, I think I was reading stats on when they play the top 6 and when they don't play the top 6, and like the XG and the XGC is just ridiculous. They seem to batter every team that isn't in the top 6. So, and game week 19, they have Brighton and Southampton both at home, so he can double up in that attack. Doesn't seem like a stupid move to me. Double strikers from the team outside the top 6 isn't necessarily a move that you'd always make, but I think that's kind of makes sense that game week.
So yeah, before we go do the deep dive into 19, shall we maybe just talk about the people who do want a free hit this week, like who are the best players to target apart from City?
Yeah. So should we build a dream team as you call it?
Something like that. Yeah.
I think.
Should we start at the back?
Yeah. So keeper probably, just because I kind of like 3 players from other teams elsewhere. I'd be tempted to bring in Darlow just because the Sheffield United attack is so toothless.
Yeah.
And Darlow's playing really well. Newcastle aren't conceding that many goals, are they? I know they're not playing very, very well, but if I wanted 3 players from, say, United, Arsenal, City, that's somewhere where I can get a player back, as you will.
Yeah, and then I'll go with that. Defenders, I'd say a United defender actually looks all right for the free hit. Because Burnley.
Yeah, I think if I'm playing free hit, I would.
Go on.
Sorry, if I'm playing free hit, I want to target players who have a real big upside. So, for example, like Cancelo over Stones or someone like that.
Yeah. So I think Maguire or Shaw would be who I'd look at if you're looking at a United defender this week. Shaw takes quite a lot of corners now for United, and they're sort of decent looking corners, which Maguire keeps getting close to getting on the end of. So potential for clean sheet and an attacking return from one of them two. And then I guess Arsenal defenders come into play a little bit now that Arsenal have turned a corner. Kieran Tierney's goal at some point over Christmas, I can't remember exactly. I think it was against West Brom.
The last game he got 18 points, I think.
Yeah, he looks
ridiculous.
But then the guy you brought in, Holding, as maybe a more budget option, looks good. You'd think that Arsenal at home, now that they have turned a corner, would have a good chance for a clean sheet against Palace, because even when they were struggling, it was creating chances and scoring that they were struggling rather than necessarily keeping it tight. So, yeah, I think if you've got an Arsenal defender, a City defender, and a United defender, that's a good basis for building your defence this week for the free hit.
Yeah.
Aston Villa versus Spurs is hard to call. I think it'll be a low scoring, but it could easily just be 1-1 and no returns for any of the defenders. Yeah,
I wouldn't be bringing in a defender. I think, as you say there, maybe the top 3 probably would be Shaw, Cancelo, and then Tierney. I think that's a good 3 there. I probably, if I'm playing my free hit, probably be 3 defenders.
The only slight risk with Shaw, which you'd have to factor into your thinking, is that he does have someone there who competes for his place in Alex Telles. But It's just
I think
recently Ollie seems to prefer Shaw.
Shaw's playing so well at the moment, and like you say, the FA Cup will tell us the story really. And if Tellers is getting 90 against Watford, then I'd be very confident that he'd be playing.
Point. So should we look at midfield?
Yeah, I'll save you the hassle. 2 no-brainers for me: Fernandes, De Bruyne.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we don't really need to talk about that. Third
I think
one,
if you're playing your free hit and you're not playing Fernandes and De Bruyne captain, 100%.
Yeah, De Bruyne captain. Yeah, I'd say it is close between Fernandes and De Bruyne, but yeah, De Bruyne captain. And then, yeah, I guess the reason we say that, if people who maybe are going Bruno or want to go Bruno, it's just Brighton are likely to give up more chances than Burnley. That they're just, the way Brighton play, it's probably going to be a bit more open that game than United versus Burnley, which should be why I'm going to go De Bruyne. And De Bruyne looks in better form at the moment than Fernandes. Fernandes looked a bit tired last night, I thought.
So. And another point probably is that the pressure kind of seems off City at the moment. They're kind of playing a lot because people have written them off and kind of playing with just no pressure whatsoever. And I think United going to Burnley, knowing that they'll top the league if they beat them, I think they still will win that game. But like you say, I don't think they'll go out like rolling them over like 4 or 5-0. Whereas City against Brighton kind of has the potential to be that.
Right. Yeah. And it's there's a slight comparison there with maybe Josh Turnbull, top of our cash league. That now he's top. He's like starting to have doubts, nerves.
He'll be second thinking every move.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that'll happen to United too. And I wouldn't mind because I've got him as well. So yeah, Rashford. I wouldn't mind the double up on the United attack in this week. I think Rashford's been I say unlucky, but he could have easily got more points the last couple. Some good saves from the keepers and him just not quite getting his finishing right. But you'd think that with a bit of variance, if he keeps playing how he is with the way he's running at defenders, there's a potential haul coming for him soon. And then would you maybe look at, if you don't fancy Rashford, I guess you could maybe double up on the City midfield, maybe Sterling. Yeah,
I'm wondering. Well, the team we're building, you probably won't be able to afford all 4, would you? Probably after that, Rashford Sterling's kind of would be a decision to make,
kind of
unless you have a very cheap, unless you have a very cheap forward line. Yeah, it'd be either or. I can see a case for Rashford, but again, for me, that City Brighton game, I think Brighton they kind of want to play, so they'll open up a bit, and I think Sterling will take full exploit of that. I think if he's given the weekend off as well, I can almost see him not being in the squad at the weekend, and that would probably sway it for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, it's a good point you mentioned about budget. So best cheap enabler, I guess, would probably Saka at the moment from Arsenal.
Yeah,
like he just, even though he's so young, he just looks Arsenal's best player at the moment, doesn't he? I can't.
Yeah, I think it's a no.
I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad game. So yeah, he's around. Is he around 5 million?
Yeah, I think is it 5.2? He's gone. Oh, he's going to be. I think the only other one for me, just if you need a budget one, would probably be El Ghazi, 5.8. I know Spurs is a tricky game, but he seems to shoot on sight for whenever he's through, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yeah, definitely. I'd just say that I think that I don't know whether he'll have that much opportunity to do that against Spurs.
They might not open up.
Yeah. I'd an honourable mention, I guess, would be for Pedro Neto. I think he's looked great the past few weeks. He looks Wolves' best player at the moment. So if it was between Neto and El Ghazi, I'd go Pedro Neto. He's 6.
Yeah. And just to throw another option there, if you do choose Rashford over Sterling, then Gundogan might not be a bad shout. He's getting I think he scored 2 in recent games, and he scored against Chelsea. He's getting a bit further forward with Rodri playing in there, and he's almost finding his feet. He's in top form, so he's probably another one. If I only had 2 City players in my team, then I had the option for a cheap enabler, then he probably would be 5.4. He's great value, and he'll be given the weekend off, so he'll definitely play.
Yeah. So I think just by looking how many midfielders we've gone through, we're probably going to want 5 in midfield and play 2 up front.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's more points in midfield this year, personally.
So just to like be a bit clear, so the 3 at the back that we're going to go for are Cancelo, Shaw / Maguire, and maybe Holding then to save a bit of budget at the back from Arsenal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the 5 in midfield would be De Bruyne, Fernandes, and then right. Should we go? Do you want to go Rashford or Sterling? I'll let you make that call.
Maybe go Rashford because I do kind of like that Gundogan pick.
Okay. Right. So
would you agree with Gundogan or not?
I do like how he's played recently. I've just not seen enough that I'd put him in.
Yeah. All right, we'll go Sterling then. Sterling.
So Sterling.
Because I think you've got to go with Free City, and I don't trust the forwards at the moment. I don't trust Jesus or Guerrero.
Yeah. So now, just thinking about it, would it maybe be better to go Sterling and Diaz and then one City midfielder rather than in terms of say for people because not everyone's got your team value or my team value even. Like I think even having Sterling and De Bruyne and then trying to afford decent defenders at the back could be difficult. I don't know.
Oh, so you're saying Diaz instead of a United defender?
I'd maybe go who do you think's more likely to keep a clean sheet this week? Arsenal or United?
At Arsenal.
They're more likely. Yeah, well, yeah. Swap DS for Shaw or Maguire then.
I just think I fancy Burnley at home compared to Palace away.
Obviously, if your team value is good, then yeah, do what you were saying before, and you can have Sterling and De Bruyne. Like there's a lot more upside to that. Definitely, it's just
for me the biggest thing that attracts me to Sterling on a free hit is basically the ownership. He's 5.4% owned, and yeah, if he gets two or maybe 3, which you won't put it past him. So he started playing to a bit of form recently.
So Fernandes, De Bruyne, and Saka are the 3 locks, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Sterling, Rashford, etc. You know, are you dependent? 5th one. I mean, would we pick someone from the Aston Villa Spurs one? Would we pick a Grealish or a Son, or would you go somewhere else?
I suppose with them two, it probably depends on if people own them already, because it might be a way of saving team value. As you say, people might be struggling. People might. I know I've got 0.6 in Grealish, so if I have 0.6
if you're free hitting, does that affect your team value?
Yeah.
Does it?
No, I mean
you just get the same because if we're talking about a free hit team, then bringing in.
No, but I mean, if you're taking out Grealish and you bought him in for 7.0 and he's 7.7 now, you would only take him out for 7.4. So you're kind of getting an extra 0.3 if you keep him in.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. I think Grealish should be the one I'd probably stick, just because I think it'll be a low-scoring game. So if you want someone in that game, I'd just go for the cheapest decent player, which would be Grealish, I think.
Yeah, he's been a weird one. I know he got 7 points last week, but on the eye, he's been absolutely brilliant this season. But then when you look at the returns, past 6, he's got 2, 3, 10, which is obviously good. 2, 2, 7, which kind of doesn't reflect how he's playing.
Well, do you remember that phrase I coined early on when we were talking about I can't even remember, but something about, was it all for play no banging, something like that? That's pretty much what you've just described. I think what's not helped him recently is when he seems to be looking really, really good and getting points is when he had Barkley to sort of bounce off.
Yeah.
The adjustment to Barkley not being there took a bit of a while. I think maybe that affected him.
Because he's having to do pretty much everything from in behind, isn't he? Rather than getting through and goal.
I guess what we'd say there then is if you can afford it, go for Son. But if you can't, go for Grealish.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then 2 forwards.
I like Lacazette this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go with that. I think he's top of every XG the past 4 weeks.
Yeah, and then if you've not done what we've said with having a Son or a Sterling, and you've got loads of its money in the midfield, then you could have Kane. But I'd probably look elsewhere. Who'd?
Would you be tempted by Calvert-Lewin? I know Wolves aren't playing too great.
Yeah. Actually, Calvert-Lewin. Wolves aren't the same Wolves this year, who keep it tight all the time. They keep switching between a 3 and a 4, and Calvert-Lewin's consistency is great. The other player I'd mention, more on the punt side of things, but if you're not going for Rashford and Martial plays in the FA Cup this weekend against Watford, that probably indicates that Cavani, who would just be coming back off of his 3-match ban from whatever he did on social media, would mean that he's likely to play against. And I think playing against Burnley, where they're going to sit in and there won't be much space in behind, that is the sort of game where Cavani is more likely to play. It would suit his game more. So
yeah. And Martial isn't playing too great and played that well last night. And it's almost as if Cavani's playing against Liverpool, he'll probably get 60 against Burnley, won't he? And then bring off for Martial.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, if you're not tempted by Calvert-Lewin, that could be a little punt. The other person to mention is Callum Wilson playing Sheffield. Like you were saying how bad Sheffield are before, and Callum, even though Newcastle aren't great themselves, Callum Wilson's been quite consistent. And as my flatmate Josh keeps telling me, I think he is 5th in striker standings at the moment, which is kind of weird, but yeah, he's 5th. He's got 86 points. He's only 9 points behind Calvert-Lewin for the season. So
that's interesting.
On pens and playing a Sheffield team that can't get a win from anywhere. So I think.
But yeah, I've just got this. Danny Ings is 6. He's been injured half it. Yeah, that's interesting. Going forward,
he's someone I'm maybe thinking about for taking out for Kane in the double. But yeah, maybe. But I think we've done a decent little run through of the best players there for the free hit. You kind of just have to alternate between the expensive and the budget ones, depending on where you most want to make that sacrifice, where you think the biggest upside is. If you've got a team value like Callum's, maybe you can just go for all the most expensive ones you've mentioned.
Oh, stop flirting, you.
Flirting.
Do you want to run through your team for this week, baby? Just for clarity of people who aren't playing the free hit and maybe looking for it just to be a couple of transfers.
So at the moment, I've got, how many have I got this week? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at the moment, I've got 8 that can play this week, but that includes.
And how many transfers do you have?
Just one transfer. I'm just going to make. Well, I've got 1 free transfer that I can make, but I'm probably going to take 2. I'm probably going to take a mine 4. So of the 8 I've got playing this week, 2 are Kilman and Brewster. So really, I've got 6, I would say. So I'm going to take out Salah for De Bruyne. I didn't do it yet like you because I wanted to wait to see if De Bruyne got an injury or whatever last night. A bit more cautious than you on the old team value front. But yeah, Salah,
speculate to accumulate.
Well, I've just lost £300, mate. So it's hard to have the bravery to speculate when you're coming off a big loss. Salah to De Bruyne, and then Kilman to. I just, even if Kilman plays this week, I know I shouldn't be taking out a player as a game this week. I think even if Kilman plays, I don't think it's going to be a clean sheet. So yeah, Kilman to, and I don't want to take out one of the players that's going to double next week. So and then Kilman to Diaz. So I'll have 2 City defenders then, and I'll have De Bruyne, so that takes me from 8 to 9 this week. So
cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to run through?
Yeah. So with those planned transfers in mind, like don't hold me to those, just in case I do a Lambert U-turn. But Martinez in net, Diaz and Cancelo in defence, and then I wouldn't have a third playing defender. I just have to take that on the chin. And then in midfield, I'd have Fernandes, De Bruyne, Son, and Rashford. and I'd have Kane and Brewster up top. That'd be my 9. I think 9 isn't fair enough number for the week if you're not free hitting.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Go on yourself.
I'm not able to do this because I'm feeling so confident. And normally FPL, when you look at your team, you think I'm gonna have a great week. You get about 30 points, it bites you in the ass. So, but I'll run through it anyway. I've got Martinez in goal, Diaz, Stones, Holding, and Dyer in defence. Fernandez, De Bruyne captain, Son, Grealish, and then Calvert-Lewin and Kane up top. So I've actually got 11. I made one transfer and I can carry 2 on to next week. So I'm actually in very good shape for the next 2 weeks, but I'm not getting too carried away just yet. And that's with Bamford and Souček on the bench, which come in for the doubles. So I'm feeling okay.
So yeah, like if you're in a similar position to us, we'd recommend probably not free hitting this week because of everything we said about the dynamics with City before. You just have to take the hits to get those players in next week anyway. So might as well just do it this week and save the free hit. But if you're not set up like that and you have less than 5 or 6 decent players in this game week 18, then use the free hit. There might not even be a better time to use it later in the season, which is kind of what I'm hoping, but there might not be. So I wouldn't be afraid to use it.
I think the key for me, as I've said, is whether you've got City or not. I think that'll be a deal breaker for me.
And then before we get into the questions, shall we quickly maybe just go through maybe what our proposed plans are again for going into 19? Because I think if you are following our strategy of not free hitting this week, make sure you don't transfer out decent players who have a double in 19. Because that's something I was thinking about before. Like I was thinking about who do I get Diaz in for? I was like, I could take out Kyle Walker-Peters rather than Kilman and save some money. But then Kyle Walker-Peters has a double in 19, so I don't really want to do that. And Southampton, they're showing they can be a bit more defensively solid like they did against Liverpool. And I don't want to take out Soufal because even though he's blanking this week, he's got the double in 19, which is Burnley and West Brom at home. So make sure you're thinking of the full picture of the next 2 with every transfer you do this week. That'd be if you take one thing from this podcast, that'd be my top tip of the week.
Indy's top tip, love it.
And then my plan for 19 would then be to take out Son and Kane. So Son would go to Salah and Kane would go to some other striker that has a double. And I'm taking the gamble there that Salah has got a double and the striker that has a double will outscore Son and Kane who only play once, even though it's Sheffield. What's your plan for 19 currently?
So mine is 2 that I'm definitely going to do is Son to Salah and Calvert-Lewin to Rodrigo. I think they're pretty much non-negotiable for me at the moment, just because that hits me right in budget. And then I might do a -4, take out either Holding or Dyer. They only have a single, and bring in Kufala or someone like that. But as I said earlier, that Dyer fixture against Sheffield United, it almost feels better than some doubles. So that's something that I'll probably weigh up closer to the time.
Fair play. I think you're probably looking at it going to outscore me by quite a bit over the next 2, but that's just how it's...
I need it because I'm in debt for 2 forfeits. I've just seen December as well.
Yeah. But we've already recorded the December forfeit, so look out for that soon. And we were so lucky to get that in just before lockdown restrictions meant we couldn't. So
it's almost as if we had prior warning from Boris.
And then the second forfeit that you do, we'll have to wait till things look better in the COVID world again. All right, should we get into the questions?
Yeah.
Did we have 1 or 2?
2.
2. Okay.
1 was from Josh. I'll just get my phone up.
Is it too risky to go without Salah for the double? I'll let you
Me personally, I'd say yes. Even if I'm not captaining him, I still think it's a risk to go without. Is it United and Burnley? But it's 2 home fixtures where Salah more often than not comes to the fore. As we said earlier, we were pretty much set on triple captain him, and that might change, but I think it is risky. But the way he's playing, it's not as risky as it could be, I'd say.
Yeah,
but I still think it's risky.
So yeah, having spoken to Josh about this, like his team value isn't great. So for him, taking out Salah is his only real way to get 3 City. So, and it means he can keep Son as well. And he got Son at 9 million. So in his case, I think the risk is kind of worth it. But I think it's not the same for everyone. And as I was saying before, with Salah's record in the Premier League, I can't remember the time when he's had a drought, really. He always seems to just consistently score. So it'd be unprecedented for him to go the next 3 games or something without scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, it is too risky to do it because I can get 3 City players anyway and get Salah back for that Liverpool double. So yeah, that would be my thoughts on it. I think if having Salah in basically means that you can't afford 2 or 3 of the other big double game week players you want, then yeah, maybe the risk is worth it. If not, then just keep him. Don't mess around with him. Anything to add?
No, I'm in full agreement. The other question we've got is from, you're probably going to tell me I've pronounced this name wrong because it's your friend, Varun.
Well,
Varun?
I swear, I would have sworn it was Varun. Like for 3 years of uni, he was Varun, and then all of a sudden he's like, "No, Mindy, that's not my name. Callum's right." I was like, "What the fuck are you on about?" How did you go through 3 years of speaking to someone and just like telling them that you're saying your name wrong the whole time? Anyway,
it's because you're such an intimidating character. People are probably scared to put you right. So the question is, it's actually an interesting one. Is it a good idea having a strong bench if you free hit this week just because of COVID wrecking havoc for the past 2 game weeks? I think it's a reasonable question, but there's a lot of defenders that are playing that are 4.5 or midfielders that are 5. Maybe I'd be tempted to do 1 or 2, but then again, if I'm doing that, those kind of options don't really offer you too much value. So maybe 1 I'd be tempted to do. But with the free hit, I kind of want to take the gamble because you're not going to get a free hit again. I think you just got to play the free hit, play the best 11, and kind of hope for the best, really.
Yeah, one of the budget enabler for a bench maybe that you could look at to do what you're saying in terms of cover yourself a bit more is that what's his name? Emil Smith Rowe
Yeah.
at Arsenal. He's 4.4 and he's played the last 3. He's not lasted 90, but at 4.4, that's fine. And he seems to be like playing in a quite attacking midfield position, creating chances. Got 9 points against West Brom. So yeah, there are players this week where you can have at least 2 playing players on the bench.
Yeah, definitely. And the keeper, if you're playing your free hit, keeper's going to be like 5 or 4.5 anyway. So you just bring in the keeper from that team. I know Josh had Forster on his bench and come in to get 6 points. So yeah, not that I'm envious.
Yeah, but no, it is a good idea if you can this week. But yeah, don't go over like spending 5 million on the bench players because then you're just ruining the rest of your free hit team, like the 11 that you do want on the pitch, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I could be wrong, but with all the rest of us civilians being locked up now, I think the COVID might be easier to control for the Premier League. I think it was that festive period where it got a bit out of hand. I think they'll have a tighter constraint on things now. I could be wrong, but yeah. I think it'll ease.
One other thing I'd say, Mindy's second top tip of the week, for if games do get cancelled again and all that, have your captain and your vice set for 2 different games. So like, don't have like, if you've got 2 City players this week, don't go De Bruyne captain and then Sterling vice captain, because then if the game gets cancelled, you've got no one. So yeah, maybe go De Bruyne captain, Bruno vice captain, spread the risk.
Sounds like a new segment for the show, Mindy's top tip.
No, I regret instantly using that phrase. I don't know.
Mindy's top tip.
We'll
have to do a Photoshop treatment for it.
Let's end there. 2 o'clock, bang on time. Unless you got anything else.
No. Yeah. For anyone new watching the show, hope you enjoyed the show. Subscribe on either YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast, and tune in next week for the next rendition of Mindy's top tip.
Leave a review on iTunes as well, please. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll leave it there before Callum gets any more stupid ideas. Have a good blank and double game week, everyone. See ya.
Adios.